This is the Sri Ramana Maharshi satsang, a time to listen, reflect, and deeply meditate. Know yourself and be always free and at peace. Welcome. I'm Richard Clarke, hosting this satsang. I'm not a guru or a teacher. Like you, I love this teaching and want to share it. I'm reviewing and commenting on the book Talks with Ramana Maharshi, and this week it's talk 104. Let me go to the words. A visitor from Delhi. He looks simple, gentle, and dignified in behavior. 5 years ago, he took up a study of devotional literature. He's a bhakta of Sri Krishna. He could feel Krishna in all that he saw. Krishna often appeared to him and made him happy. His work was going on without any effort on his part. Everything seemed to be done for him by Krishna himself. Later, when he came into contact with a Mahatma who advised him to study Vedanta and take to devotion of formless being, he had since read about 700 books of philosophy in Vedanta, including the Upanishads, Ashravaka, Advaita, and the Bhagavad Gita. He also studied Sri Bhagavan's work in English and is much impressed by them. Once, when he was in the jaws of death, no other thought haunted him but that he had not yet visited Bhagavan in his life. So he had come here on a short visit. He prays only for Sri Bhagavan's touch and his grace. The master said to him, I am Atman. Atman is the guru, and Atman is grace also. No one remains without the Atman. He is always in contact. No external touch is necessary. The devotee says, I understand. I didn't mean external touch. Maharshi, nothing is more intimate than the Atman. Then the devotee says, again, Krishna appeared to me 3 months back and said, why do you ask me for formless worship? It is only the self in all, and all in the self. Maharshi says this contains the whole truth. Even this is indirect. There is, in fact, nothing but the Atman. The world is only a projection of the mind. The mind originates from the Atman. So Atman alone is the one being. The devotee says, yet it's difficult to realize. And Maharshi says, there is nothing to realize. It is the eternal, pure, aware, and liberated state. It is natural and eternal. There is nothing new to gain. On the other hand, a man must loose his ignorance. That's all. This ignorance must be traced to its origin. To whom is this ignorance? Of what is one ignorant. There are the subject and the object. Such duality is characteristic of the mind. The mind is from the Atman. So Ramana is visited by this man who has a devotional practice to Krishna, and also of Shravana and Manana. Shravana means hearing or reading, hearing the truth. Manana means contemplating the truth. So he reads holy books and reflects on them. Recently, he heard from his personal deity that he should instead look to the self that is in all, rather to an external God. This brought him to Ramana. He asked for Ramana's grace to be bestowed on him. Ramana immediately directs him to the one being and told him that there is nothing to gain or acquire and nothing to realize, since he is already that absolute being and consciousness. He must loose his ignorance. That is all. Ramana teaches in the context of Advaita Vedanta, which emphasizes the oneness of the individual true self, the Atman, with the ultimate reality, Brahman. In this dialogue, Ramana Maharshi tells the visitor that he himself is the Atman, the true self. Ramana says that Atman is the guru, the inner teacher, and that Atman is also the source of grace. Ramana Maharshi says that everyone is always the Atman, and so no external touch or intervention is necessary. After the visitor said he understood, Ramana clarifies that nothing is more intimate than the Atman. The Atman is the closest and most essential part of yourself, and that it is always present within everyone. The ultimate goal of spiritual practice is to realize your true identity as the Atman, and so to experience the oneness of existence directly. Ramana Maharshi teaches that the Atman is not something that can be obtained or achieved through external means, but rather it is always present within every individual as their true self. It's just a matter of recognizing what is already there. He teaches that the purpose of spiritual practice is not to attain a higher state or to reach a goal, but to turn inward and realize the true nature of yourself. Ramana Maharshi emphasizes the importance of self-inquiry, questioning the nature of the self, your sense of identity, in order to discover the Atman. He teaches that by consistently, internally asking the question, who am I, and investigating the nature of the self, you can ultimately come to the realization that the true self is not the body, not the mind, not the emotions, but rather the unchanging and eternal consciousness that is the Atman. In this conversation, the visitor reports that he had a vision of the deity, Sri Krishna, who told him that he should focus on the true nature of the self, Atman, that Atman exists in all beings, and that all beings exist within the self. Ramana Maharshi agrees with this understanding and that it contains the whole truth. And he goes on to say that there is ultimately nothing but the Atman, that the world that we perceive is actually a projection of the mind, and that the mind itself originates from the Atman. Therefore, the Atman is the one and only true being, and everything else is merely an appearance or projection on Atman, like the waves on the ocean. Ramana Maharshi's teachings on the Atman and the nature of reality emphasize the importance of realizing the unity of all existence and the ultimate oneness of the self. He teaches that by turning inward and discovering the true nature of the self through self-inquiry, you can ultimately transcend the illusions of the mind and experience the unchanging and eternal reality of the Atman. He says that the individual Atman and the universal consciousness, Brahman, are one and the same. They are not different. So to know Brahman, know Atman, know yourself. Ramana's teachings are based on the ancient teaching of Advaita Vedanta, which emphasizes the non-dual nature of reality. The true nature of the self is pure consciousness, which is eternal and unchanging. And this consciousness is the same in all beings. What appears as many is in reality only one. In this conversation, the visitor expresses that it's difficult to realize the true nature of the self. Ramana Maharshi responds by saying that there is nothing to realize, since the eternal, pure, aware, and liberated state is already a natural and eternal aspect of the self. It is already who you are. Rather than trying to gain something new, you must simply lose what veils it, your ignorance. Ramana Maharshi also teaches that the world we perceive is not the ultimate reality, but rather a manifestation of our own minds. He said that the mind creates the illusion of separation and duality, which is why we perceive ourselves as separate from others and the world around us. However, by turning inward and investigating the nature of the self through self-inquiry, you can ultimately realize the true nature of reality and experience the oneness of all existence. Through self-inquiry and the realization of non-dual awareness, Ramana Maharshi teaches that individuals can overcome ignorance and experience the natural state of pure awareness and liberation. His teachings continue to inspire spiritual seekers around the world to look within themselves and discover the true nature of the self. And now we'll listen to my teacher, Nomi, with a discourse, Question of Identity.
You are the self, and to steadily abide in self-knowledge, or self-realization as we call it, you have only to abandon the misidentification with the falsely assumed existence as an ego entity. You have only to abandon the false supposition that you are in some way defined by or connected to a mind, the senses, prana, the body. Such misidentification alone gives the false appearance of being bound, and consequently is the seed for any kind of suffering. When we feel like as if we are bound, then we wisely seek liberation. Yet the liberation we seek is our own nature. It is not true that the self, which is Brahman, is one kind of self, and you yourself are another kind of self. There is only one self. So to utterly eliminate the possibility of misidentification, in other words, in order to utterly destroy ignorance and its consequent bondage and suffering, the Maharshi gives the instruction that you should inquire as to who you are. Because if you deeply inquire, who am I, within yourself, the entire notion, the perspective of being an individual, an experiencer, caught up in whatever, thoroughly dissolves. Hearing the truth about the self, if you approach it as if it were the self and yourself as another, you have to find out then what the nature of this yourself is. Who am I? You will find that your nature is only pure existence, pure consciousness, which is also pure bliss. The scriptures say that one should become Brahman. It does not mean that we should transform our nature from one thing to another. That is not possible. All that is meant is the abandonment of misidentification. So that your identity shifts, as it were, from the embodied individual, which is thoroughly an illusion, to the reality. I say, as it were, in terms of the shifting, because your existence is always that. If the one who is ignorant inquires into his own nature, there will be found to be existing no such thing as an ignorant one. Just the one who is knowledge. Not who has knowledge, but the one who is knowledge. For in self-knowledge, being and knowledge are identical. It is not possible to know the self as this. Who would be knowing what? But if you inquire, and inquiry is transcendent of the senses and transcendent of the mind, if you inquire to know who you are, then as the Maharshi has stated, the inquirer is himself the answer, and there's no other answer. Wise sages say that we should wake up from the stream of samsara. It is right advice, it is holy advice. But who is it that dreams in samsara? Dreams of the samsara, and then dreams that he is in the samsara. And who are you? As long as the idea of existing as an individual entity persists, there will be seemingly endless waves of limited experience or samsara, waves of illusion. If you know yourself as you truly are, the illusion has not yet started, nor will it. The samsara is rootless. It did not develop. There is no one who dreams, who sleeps, or who wakes. No one born and no one perishing. Just one solitary being, eternal and infinite, exists. And you are that. Therefore, realize the bliss by being utterly detached, knowing the real abiding place of bliss as yourself. Realize knowledge by knowing yourself as consciousness itself, transcendent of all that is perceived and conceived. Realize being in utter identity with it, that leaves no possibility of the trace of illusion.
All right. And now we'll take a few minutes to inquire. Notice you exist, and you know that you exist. Now, inquire, investigate within yourself. What is the awareness within you? Does it come from some part of you? Or is it you? Is it who you are? Does this awareness have a form? Or is it formless? This awareness is the self. Is the self one or many? Is it one to know another one, or just one? Is there anything new, anything else to gain? Or is it there now within you? Who am I? What is the nature of my existence? All right. And we'll close with a chant. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace. All right. Questions, discussion, or just it's still going through talks. I still have this heavy reaction listening to Ramana, just dealing with who's there today. And again, how immediately he just uproots whatever limited set of ideas they have that begins with, and just immediately takes him to the deepest. He doesn't mess around. He just, it's amazing to notice, actually.
It sure makes one wish that they could have been there then.
Oh, yes, yes.
Oh,
Now, I didn't read it, but in this section about the guy who was visiting who had read the 1,000 books, he said after he left Ramana that he didn't need to read anymore.
yeah. I think I've, passed that. when I first started out, I wanted to read everything, and now I'm very content not to read. I
Uh-huh.
don't need to find out anything more.
Right, right. It's like Ramana says, there's nothing else. There's nothing more that we need than is right here, right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although it is helpful to hear it over and over again.
Oh, indeed,
Yeah. Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah. That's like, it's not the same as gaining information. It's just reminding of what we already know.
Right. I
when
think
we
the
hear it.
reminding is the right word.
Yeah.
You know, I still think of that little demon under Shiva's foot and Dakshinamurti's foot that's looking up and smiling at him while he's being crushed, and the demon of forgetfulness.
Mhm.
You know, so I think they've known for a while that we need reminding.
Well, yeah.
Mm.
We've been a very long time in this human condition.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And to me, one of the things that was most important and most attractive about learning about Ramana's teachings is the idea that we don't need to learn or be or attain anything else, that whatever it is here right now,
Mhm.
and all we have to do is pay attention.
Yeah. The directions are simple.
Well, again, very good to be with you
Yeah.
today, and namaste.
No.
Namaste.
We'll
And
see
thank
you
you.
next time.
Thank you
Okay.
all.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this Ramana Maharshi video, subscribe, like, and send me a comment.